No, yep. Oh, here we go. Let me go ahead and I actually forgot to tweet. Let me tweet that out. Did not tweet it out. Let me put it in IRC.
Welcome, viewer and listener.
Let's see. Ep36. All right. Good evening, Thomas.
Good evening, Eric.
Episode 36. 36 straight weeks we've talked to each other.
Yeah, I like it.
I like it too.
It keeps us from talking too much, but talking at least a little.
Man, what a week it's been here. I tell you what, it's been one thing after another. We have well, let's talk about the big thing here.
Leonard Cohen died.
We have a very strict policy. We decided when we put this podcast together, there are going to be certain things we weren't going to talk about.
I was going to say, we don't have any strict policies.
Politics was definitely high on that list. But with the elections that happened this week and the results of the elections, I'm giving us a pass, like a 5-minute opportunity here, starting right now, to talk about it a little bit. And the biggest thing I want to talk about with politics is, especially for anybody listening outside the country who might be a little confused.
Our many Brazilian listeners.
Our whole one Brazilian listener.
No.
Might be
little confused.
We have
a Brazilian listeners. That's a lot.
They might be a little confused why the U.S. is upset over their election process. And I think the one thing that might not be clear to everybody, and the thing that a lot of Americans are feeling frustrated about with this election, is they always tell you, get out and vote. Every vote counts. Every vote counts. And that's not completely true in the U.S. The way the U.S. The voting works here in the U.S. In theory, sure, every vote counts, but we have this thing called electoral college, and that's actually the vote that counts. The vote that counts is the vote that your state puts towards a politician. For the most part, I don't want to get real deep into this. There's a lot of reasons. The reason why we have the electoral college as opposed to popular vote. Popular vote is what you would expect. Whoever gets the most votes wins. And in theory, an electoral college, that should work. It should work that way as well. But there have been cases where it hasn't worked that way. And this election was one of those cases where the person who got the popular vote, which means they got more votes than the other person, lost because they didn't get the electoral votes. And that's because the way the electoral college is laid out, some of the smaller states that have fewer population, not even the smaller state, just the states that have fewer population, they actually get more electoral votes than would be allotted for that population. And the reason behind that, in theory, it was designed that way so that those smaller populated states, whether it's something like Wyoming, that's a big state, just few people, or something like New Hampshire, which is a small state but a lot of people, is that they didn't want the politicians to ignore those states. The issue is occasionally, and it's only happened 4 or 5, maybe 6 times in history. The last time I remember, now. 5. Yeah, I know it happened with Gore and Bush, and then obviously with Hillary and Trump. But the problem with that is, like, one person voting in Wyoming actually counts for 4 people voting in California. So yeah, sure, every vote counts, but their vote counted 4 times more than your vote counted. And the thing is whoever wins in your state, the loser, those votes go out the door. Like they're worthless because they don't mean anything. If you voted for, like, Hillary Clinton won California, well, all the votes for Donald Trump, who actually ended up winning the election, all the votes that were cast for Donald Trump are worthless because he didn't win California. So only one person can win a state. So that's why we ended up in this weird situation
Well, and
where,
we also only have two parties, which is unusual in world politics. Is most governments have at least three parties running,
well,
but we only have two.
we have, that's not completely true though. I
Until
mean, if you look at your ballot, you had more than two names on your ballot.
Yeah, but until a third party receives 7% of the popular vote, they don't receive national support and funding for campaign.
Okay.
So there's a whole bunch
Because
of
I
rules.
mean, we have other parties that are pretty big parties, but they're kind of more of an annoyance party than actually ever able to get elected to do anything.
Yeah.
And some people say, and I don't. We're coming up on our 5 minutes. And I know I hogged most of it, but some people say they're actually detrimental to the whole process. So I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know if you remembered Ross Perot. A lot of people say Clinton won because Ross Perot took George Bush Sr. took his votes, and that's actually why Clinton ended up winning. Ross Perot ran as an independent at the time and didn't get nearly enough votes to actually come close to winning, but he got enough. He took enough votes away from George Bush, who was our seating president at that time, to swing the election over to Bill Clinton. That's one of the kind of theories. That's all I have to say about that. If anybody's wondering, I know there's been a lot of confusion as to why people might be upset, why the person who got the most votes didn't win the election. It's a process here. It's not a perfect process, but it's one we live with, and it's better than most countries. It just doesn't
Yeah.
always work out.
And the writing always dies down eventually.
Yeah. So that's my politics thing. I didn't want to not say anything about it because obviously it was a big news item, but at the same time, I don't have a lot to get into. I'm not going to beat the dead horse on this one. There was
No, but
something that happened. Go ahead. Go.
I like how it segues into our next topic, which is have you ever looked at something and just said, "Oh, this isn't working," and scrapped the whole thing and started over?
That's a very common practice for me, unfortunately. I get like 80 yards into it, and I'm like, ah, man, this is just you've gone too far down the path, and just dump all the code and start from scratch. I take it you had to do that recently.
No, but it's been on my mind. For the last couple of weeks, I've been talking about this project that's just sort of dragging its feet along and missing deadlines. And there's definitely a point where I saw it turning into a monolith and said, "We've got to stop this while we can." And then realize, well, it's just too late. We're already deadline behind. We don't have a start
Yeah,
over position.
if you're gonna scrap a project, you've got to pull that trigger, man. Yeah, so when I say I've done that in the past, it's been on personal projects.
Yeah.
But yeah, when somebody's been paying you for months and you've been working on something, that's a hard conversation.
Yeah, and I think when it's something that just you are working on, it's not very common, but this one became a monster through team effort. And we haven't deployed yet, but we're already talking about what the next iteration is going to be and how quickly we can get that work started, because I don't think anyone's really happy with where we ended up.
Disappointing to hear. That's disappointing.
Yeah. I wonder, so you've never done it. Well, I mean, have you done it? Have you done it on a project that is a contract project? Have you gotten 3 days in and just shot all 3 days in the foot and started over?
No, I'm gonna say no. I can't think of any time I'd done that on a professional project.
I'd love to
Yeah,
hear
I mean,
from our listeners about a project where they made the right call and they killed the project early and restarted, because it's something that, it's occurred to me a couple times. Hey, we should have killed this last week before it turned into a monster.
yeah.
And not,
we've
not just this project.
we've taken over projects like that. We've had a client come to us who had the beginnings of an application written in Cake PHP, and we just told them, listen, you've got some pretty good momentum here. You've got some pretty good progress. We're not going to take over Cake PHP app. Uh, if you guys want to consider continuing down this path, we can help you find some resources. But here's what we would do. We would move this over to Laravel, and we kind of talk through all that. And the client made the decision, yeah, scrap it, just start over. But that previous work wasn't our work, and it wasn't bad work. It was on a much older, or not much older. It was a version old of Cake PHP. I think it was 2, and Cake PHP is up to 3 or 1 to 2. I forget. It was a major revision behind what was released. So it was missing things like Composer, and there was a lot of modern practices and workflows that it didn't have in it. But yeah, no, that's a tough decision. Yeah. Yep. So I saw you had some other things on here.
I do. I sort of, in my bleary-eyed 10-hour day, 12-hour day sessions, kept running into articles that just struck my interest. One of them was a recommendation to remove the -m support from Git. I don't know if you've ever seen this. Do you know what -m does?
Well, I mean, you can't commit without -m. I have it. I have a shortcut, so -m is always assumed. But that adds the message to your commit.
Yeah. So the way I've seen it is that -m is for, a message in line with the commit.
Right.
And then if you don't leave it in there, then Vim will pop up and ask for your message, or Nano, or whatever you have configured.
Right.
And the recommendation was, remove -m from the command line, force them to pop open a text editor to fully commit a message, because people are too inclined to type in a one-liner.
I mean, I don't know. How do you feel about that? Let me ask your opinion.
I like my one-sentence commit messages. Frequent and short,
It depends on the commit. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, if you're doing a commit that's fixing a bug, if you're doing a commit that, it changes 1 or 2 files, yeah, a one-liner is more than enough. Why do you think you would need more? Now, if you're doing a commit that changes the architecture of the application, the behavior of the application, I encourage you to go in and create a better commit message. But yeah, forcing somebody to, I mean, even if Vim screen did pop up for me, it would still be a short commit message. I mean, that wouldn't make me do anything more.
So what do you put in your commit messages? Do you have like a ticket number, or is it just commit what changed and just that's it?
With the work that we have, there's a debate about this. We've talked about it a little bit in the past. I don't know if we've ever talked about it on the show before, but the workflow that we have established is that there's a master repo, which is called Upstream. Everybody's kind of familiar with Upstream. But all of our developers fork from there. which is, kind of, some people say that's a waste. Other people, tend to agree with it. But we have everybody forked from upstream, and then everybody works off their own private repo. Now, what this allows them to do is they can put in kind of whatever commit messages they want there, because it's not super impactful to us. What becomes impactful to us is when it gets merged back into the master repo. From there, they have to do pull request, and with the pull request with GitHub, we've set it up so it pops up that template. They have to fill out information, and yes, to your point, we actually have a format in the pull request that you have to reference a ticket number that the PR is related to from our ticketing system, have comment. I'm pretty lazy. I can get really lazy with my comments on my personal repo, where I'm just like cleaning up code, Yeah. Because the thing is like, if you're a developer, you just look at the diff and you can see what's changed. I can say created a new function called blah 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 in my commit, but I mean, if I'm looking at commits, chances are I'm looking for something, and I'm going to be looking at the code anyways. I try to be a little descriptive, but especially if I'm working, because I commit like mad, because I'm always paranoid I'm going to lose the work I'm working on. So I like to push things up. I commit frequently. So I'll get into a little thing where I'm committing like every hour, but not enough has changed from hour to hour to justify a whole new commit message. So I'll have the same commit message for like 4 or 5 commits.
Yeah, I like that pull requests require their own independent commit messages, because tying it to a ticket, you can quickly look over things and say, why is there change in code that doesn't have anything to do with this ticket?
Mm-hmm.
And GitHub is great because you can establish a line of communication with the person issuing the pull request as well. You can say, why'd you do this? Why'd you do this? And all the communication stays there right on the pull request.
We're trying to get a lot better at having some of our conversation within the PRs themselves, because with everybody in Slack, there's this kind of tendency to see a PR come in because we have all that stuff feed into Slack, and then somebody sees something and they'll just ask their question in Slack, which isn't terrible, but the thing is somebody else comes in and does a code review, and they might have the same question, and they're asking the same question in Slack, and it's like, all right, just put the question on the PR. That way everybody can see that the question's already been asked and answered, and we can move on.
Yeah, and those integrations can generate a lot of white noise sometimes that sort of tunes you out to what's actually happening. I know I've seen projects where I get notifications in Slack constantly, and I've just learned to ignore them.
Yeah. So what about comments? What's your opinion on comments?
Very similar. It's a very similar issue. This came up because I listened to a quick podcast from Jeffrey Way of Laracon fame, and his podcast was about his workflow for essentially creating his methods as a comment first, line for line. This does this, then this does this, pseudocode, and then replacing his comments with code that could be read the same way. So he's advocating generally that if your code is good enough, you don't need comments. And I know that that's a huge point in our community, is that code should be self-explanatory. If it's not, then the code needs to be fixed, not a comment added. I'm wondering how you feel about that.
I don't know. I'm on the fence about that one. I used to be really guilty of just writing books of comments. I used to comment the hell out of my code, and that was probably not the best thing to do. I would have like 5 lines of comment for 1 line of code, and it's just it was overkill. But it was from. I mean, it was I guess probably more for me. Kind of what Jeffrey Wade was talking about, where I would kind of talk through what I was doing and writing it in the comments, but I just wouldn't remove those comments. I would just add the code to it, and then I would have my comments and my code. And then there was a time where I was getting all into PHP docs and trying to make everything so it would generate these beautiful docs. And so
Have we become fat and lazy programmers? It's like, I
well,
don't
yeah,
screw with doc blocks or code exception. That's for when things go wrong, and things don't go wrong.
I have definitely pulled back a lot on my commenting, and a lot of it has come from I challenge myself to write better code so that I don't need comments. But with that said, I was refactoring some code this week that needed comments. I mean, they just needed comments. I'm looking at the code, and it's a for each inside a for each with an if else if else, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I needed something to help guide me through what I was looking at. I don't know. I'm still a fan of comments. I don't fault anybody for putting comments in there. Ideally, even if your code's clean.
You just inspired me to add comments to some of my code that I realized was total nonsense. I have a code where it's handling pagination and inserting advertisements into giant lists of videos.
Uh-huh.
And so at some
Yeah.
point, I'm paginating, and I say, okay, get the page count, insert the ads, divide it by half, and add 12. And of course that means something really important, right? Like add 12. Why is it 12? So I probably should just pop in there and add a comment that says it's 12 because it's the number of videos you fetch plus the number of ads you insert. That equals one full page.
And I completely agree with you. Yeah, that's a perfect example. Now, I also like the Easter egg comments as well. I put a lot of those in there. And the apology comments. Oh yeah.
Oh, apology comments.
Apology comments I put in. I don't do it so much as I used to, but back in my younger days, I had a lot of apology comments to whatever future developer might be looking at that code piece.
Yeah. Here there be dragons.
I would put comments in from the drunk me to the sober me.
Oh my god, I've done that too.
Oh, what developer hasn't done it? Yeah, I'll intentionally put comments in for me to read again because I know I'm going to go back and look at that code and say, what was I doing here? And it's typically from an intoxicated me to a sober me.
No, I've definitely left comments that said, you did this at 2 a.m. You should probably double check it when you wake up.
Yep. Yeah.
Boy, that's all going to change with California legislation.
Hey, I thought what legislation?
Marijuana.
We talking politics again? Oh, that one, yeah.
Yeah, that's not politics.
Oh, whatever. Yeah, marijuana passed. Recreational. I don't know. How long does that take to actually implement, though? Is that going to be one of these things where it's like 3 years later we're still talking about doing it?
First of the year.
Oh, really? So just the first of the year, magically, it becomes legal to smoke pot?
Yeah. But it's not the issue of smoking it. It's the issue of possession.
Uh-huh.
If you smoke it in your own house, then it's hard for the cops to bust you on that no matter what. But if they pull you over driving down the road and you've got it in your pocket, then it means that they're not allowed to search your car because they found weed in your pocket.
So what was the prop exactly?
Prop 64.
Yeah.
So it establishes a bunch of things like how many plants you can grow, and what.
So this straight up makes it legal. Like you can legally walk around with it.
Yeah. So you can. Oh boy, no. Yeah, I'm looking at it, but oh Jesus, auto-playing audio on a website. Don't you people learn?
I hate those websites.
Come on. So, yeah, in January, recreational licensing will become available to stores that want to sell. So, most likely places that work recreationally right now will try to get a recreational, or sorry, medically. Most likely the places that distribute medically right now will be applying for licenses for recreational use. And you can, if you have it in your home, you can share it with other people. It's legal to buy it. But there's similar stuff to public intoxication laws where you can't walk down the street smoking a joint.
Just like you can't walk down the street drinking a beer
Yeah.
legally.
No, you could technically do it.
Right.
But yeah, it's going to raise a whole lot of questions coming up in the future. But I brought that up for a reason. I was going to put that on this list. I brought that up because I was wondering. I know drunk programmers, or the Balmer curve. I don't know how weed affects programmers. Do you know any programmers who just insist on having a joint before sitting down for a real session?
No. I meant at Laracon last year. I met one from Denver, and we talked about the laws there, and he was telling me he grows and smokes his own, but I don't not like alcohol. I'm not aware of any.
Interesting.
And
I'm gonna have to look into this one.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. Yeah, and we talked. We had an episode a couple episodes back talking about drugs that enhance your ability to code a little bit, and I don't think
the LSD microdosing stuff.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be one of those. But I'm curious. My biggest question, and it's been ever since states started making it legal, is how do they test for this in the field? Like if you're driving and you're suspected of being high, I mean, when you're suspected of being drunk, they have a procedure. They have test kits. They have things they can do. They have breathalyzers that they make you blow into and can say, hey, yeah, this guy's intoxicated.
Sure.
But to my knowledge, there's nothing like that for pot.
Nope.
So how's that going to work?
Well, it works the same way that they measure intoxication with alcohol, which is they start with a field test on you, which is just, can you walk? Can you talk? Can you do the alphabet backwards without saying, I can't do that because I'm drunk? Because that's what that test is. When they say, can you do the alphabet backwards? People who are drunk say, no, I can't, I'm drunk. It's pretty great. But
I live in fear being asked that because I know I can't, period.
Right. Everyone does.
Can't.
Everyone does, which is why the most common response is, I can't even do that sober. Which is... So it's really a judgment call for the officer. If he thinks you're too intoxicated to drive, he can arrest you no matter what you're intoxicated under. It's the same thing for somebody who's high on meth right now and gets pulled over, or high on weed. I mean, you're not going to have more people driving while high just because it's legalized. Everyone has weed right now in California.
Yeah.
So
I don't have any weed.
You want some? You have to laugh directly into the mic. They don't know you're laughing if you turn away from it.
I'm terrified that the cops are going to come busting down your door now. YouTube's pulling us from the air because we're doing a live drug transaction. We're streaming a drug transaction. We're not streaming a drug transaction. I don't know what bots are out there listening to us. We're not.
Wait,
terrified.
If this isn't our best podcast ever, our next one will be. Well, I'm gonna look
All
into that.
right,
I'll let you know what I find.
I'm gonna tell you, I was heartbroken this week. I worked very hard. I thought I knew for sure the direction a certain decision was going to take, and I had my dreams crushed.
Yeah, it's tough to see the country move this way. Really,
No,
to the
Thomas,
east.
not the country. Laracon.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah.
So we talked about it a while back, and I'd been engaging Taylor for years about moving Laracon out to San Diego, and he
Now, when you say
teased me a
years, you
little.
mean years, really years.
I really mean years. Yeah, I really mean years. And he teased me with it a little bit this year with a couple DMs on Twitter. I think he just likes toying with my emotions. He never intended on actually bringing it out to San Diego. He just wanted to get my hopes up. But Laracon US 2017 was announced. Not only is it not in San Diego, it's nowhere close to San Diego.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like
the
as
opposite
far,
of San Diego.
it's as far from San Diego as you can probably get and still stay in the continental US. I'm not going to say where it's at because I don't want to encourage people to attend. No, okay. It's going to be in New York City. There, I said it.
Yeah. The home of our president-elect, New York City.
Yeah.
Yeah, they announced the dates too. We're looking at July 25th and 26th, and this is actually Laracon's return to New York because they were there previously.
Yeah, well, not that was their. If I remember correctly, that was their first Laracon was in New York City.
Oh, wow. Have you checked out the website?
Yeah. Why?
They have after parties planned, and it says the drinks are on us.
We had after parties this year.
Yeah, but the drinks weren't on Laracon.
Yeah, they were. Every day.
Oh, this year. I didn't go this year.
Yeah, every day after the conference they had. Well, they had it with you as well, where in the lobby they had drinks.
Yeah, I just didn't get invited.
And then this year they actually had an after party where we went to a bar and drank, and it was a good time. But I was looking at. I mean, it's New York City for crying out loud. And the one thing that's nice about Laracon is it's one of the more affordable conferences to go to. But my God, dude, looking at hotels in New York City, it's so expensive.
And it is still a single track conference. It's still just the one stage.
Super happy about that. Yeah, I am super happy. I'm glad he's keeping it a single track. I hope he holds on to that as long as he can. I mean, it's kind of a specialty conference, so I don't see why you would ever not be a single track. I think you might be getting a little too big for yourself if you feel like you have to have a multi-track conference for Laravel. Not that you couldn't do it, just I think you'd start diluting the conference a little bit with it. But the single track conference with Laracon is hands down. I mean, look at the speakers that they already have queued up. I mean, these are the top in our little community. So,
and out of it, I mean, Adam Wathan, one of our favorite contributors here. We bring him up every other episode or so.
You know, we're doing an interview with him, right?
No, I'm so excited.
I know, it's January. Our first Laravel user group meetup in January. We're going to do a hangout with Adam Wathan. So I am super excited about it. We have
and now Evan Yu is going to be speaking as well, and he's the creator of Vue.js, which, boy, Vue.js has really started tying itself to Laravel lately.
Yeah, well, not lately. Ever since Taylor mentioned looking at Vue.js, and Evan Yu is pretty upfront about it. He did a keynote last year where he showed the downloads from GitHub from the day that Taylor Otwell tweeted, "Hey, I'm looking at Vue.js," and you see this massive spike that just shoots up.
Oh yeah.
And so he's pretty upfront that I do like the fact that he within the Vue community, he separates himself from Laravel. So there's a lot of stuff within Vue that is really Vue centric, and
Yeah.
he doesn't make it so much where Vue is nothing without Laravel. But he's very accommodating to the Laravel community. Like any talks or conferences or anything, he's there. So it's nice. It's good. I need to get. We have we talked last. I think we talked about last week. We have a new Vue meetup here in San Diego.
Yeah.
And they're coming to do a talk about Vue for us next week at our Laravel talk. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, we're gonna have two presentations at that meetup. We're gonna have Vue and testing in Laravel. So that'll be an interesting one to have. I know testing in Laravel can actually be quite different than testing in other frameworks.
Is this your last meetup? Is this your
No,
last San Diego Laravel?
No, I'll be here till February, so I'll be there at the January meetup.
Ah, very
Can't
good.
get rid of me that quickly.
I tried. Already got Marcus queued up.
Oh, I know. You brought somebody in from out of state last meetup.
Huh?
You brought Kalen in, flew him out here just to replace me. You stood us up side by side and compared. So speaking of conventions, have you been to the True North convention?
No, it's one of those conferences I've always wanted to go to. It's the one that's held in Toronto. Grumpy Programmer's one of the guys who organizes that one.
Yeah, and he's the PHP unit guy. He writes a lot about PHP unit.
Yeah, you talk about testing in PHP. That guy will run you over the coals if you don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was reading about how I guess this was the last year for it. They ran the True North PHP conference for, I think this was their 5th year, and their last year. And so
really,
I didn't read the whole article as to why this decision was made, but as it stands right now, there won't be another True North PHP.
That's a bummer to hear.
Well, yeah. It kind of is. Always got that one confused with the Pacific Northwest PHP conference.
I always get it confused with the South by Southwest.
How's that? How would you get True North confused with South by Southwest?
I just confuse easily.
Oh, this is true.
Well, this leaves an opening, though. I mean, there's a conference shutting down, and there's a conference going all the way over to New York. We need somebody to have a conference here in San Diego. Somebody to rise up.
Don't start this conversation with me again.
No?
It's not that I don't want to. I have zero time. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I couldn't even get Taylor to bring out an established conference. You think I can create a conference from scratch?
Yeah.
No, nobody likes me that much. Nobody would come speak at it.
Oh yeah.
I can't get presenters to our stinking PHP user group meetings. You think I'm going to be able to get a presenter to a conference?
Well, I had to bail out on that when I had a project.
Yeah, that's right. You bailed on me. God, you're supposed to be my friend.
Oh, I almost didn't. I almost committed myself to something I couldn't actually pull off.
No, you've been fine.
Oh, that was very
so our favorite encryption project, Let's Encrypt.
Yes.
Did you see this post that I put on Trello?
No.
So there's 2 interesting things about it. So Let's Encrypt, if you're not familiar with it, why are you not familiar with it? But if you're not familiar with it, they've basically made HTTPS affordable for everybody by doing these TLS certs for free. They're short-lived certs. They only last 3 months. So you have to put some routines in it to make sure you're constantly looking for renewals. Well, they have a like a GoFundMe page. It's on. Well, this is actually one of the things I want to talk about. It's on the site called Generosity, which I had never heard of. And have you ever heard of Generosity before?
No, but it says here generosity by Indiegogo.
That's what I was going to bring up. I know your love
Mm,
for Indiegogo.
yeah, I'll never use them again.
So Generosity looks very much like a GoFundMe page where they're not saying you're getting anything. They're not building anything. This is just, hey, we have this effort. Will you help us? The thing that kind of caught me off guard, their goal was $200,000. I'm like, huh,
That,
that's
that is
that's a
pretty
lot of money.
significant.
Yeah, so that's a lot of money. And I listened to the video. They claim that it's costing them $200,000 a month to run Let's Encrypt.
But they're not without support though. Let's
What do you mean?
Encrypt is, I believe Let's Encrypt is owned by Akami or Akamai. Is that not it?
Oh, I don't know, to be honest.
Because I mean,
I
yes, they're doing us a very generous service here, but it's not purely through their own good graces.
I've always been curious how they were funded. Now, I never thought it cost almost $250,000 a month to run it, but
That wouldn't surprise me so much, but
really, quarter of a
yeah,
million. That's a lot of money every
DDoSes are
month.
expensive.
Yeah. What I thought was
It's run
funny.
by the ISRG, the Internet Security Research Group, which is a tax exempt group sponsored by a diverse group of organizations, and
So they do have some sponsorship.
they do have some sponsorship, and their board of members includes employees of Akamai, Mozilla, Cisco, EFF, Stanford Law School, University of Michigan. So I don't know.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they're directly associated with uh, Akamai, but I know that there's a connection to the two.
What's funny is if you watch the video, if you look at the page as well, there's a little graph there on growth of HTTPS page loads. And if you watch the video, they say when we started Let's Encrypt, only about 40% of the web was using HTTPS. But since Let's Encrypt, and then it draws this graph that goes up, 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 up. You're like, holy crap, that's like 90% of the web. And it goes from 40%, and the top of the chart is 48%. It's like, hey,
Stunning.
really? 8%? 8% is costing you almost $250,000? Seriously?
Now this is going to become more important though, because the Chrome is going to start warning users whenever they use non HTTPS sites.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's kind of a pain in the butt. Even now with Chrome, I have certain sites that it it will just bomb on if it doesn't have HTTPS enabled on it. And there's
Man.
no reason not to do it. I've deployed it on all of. I think I even deployed it on a PHP Ugly site. I should check that right now before I say that. Otherwise, I'm going to have to cut that out. Let me see. Yeah, I did. Typically on every site I deploy now, I'll spin up a Let's Encrypt cert for it, and even though there's no logins for anybody, well, there is actually a login to the PHP Ugly site now for me, but
Oh, I don't get one. It's
I
okay.
offered you one last week. You said no.
I said, "Do we have a website? Are you recording this?"
I thought that was cool. I did not realize it costs that much to run Let's Encrypt. Holy crap, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for supporting them. I think the proper way to support them is to use their paid service, because Indiegogo is a dumpster fire.
Do they have a paid service? I don't think they have a
Sure.
paid service.
Absolutely.
What are you talking about? TSL,
Well,
TSL.
you were saying that it's the certification is only a 3-month certification.
Yeah. They don't have any
You
paid
can
service.
buy a longer service.
Where? I'm not seeing it. Donate. I see a donate button, which takes you to the generosities page. There's no paid service for Let's Encrypt, you goofball.
Well, I is this the episode where I'm wrong about everything? Oh no, that was every episode before this.
Yeah, I don't see what does it take to become a sponsor? Yeah, so all of their sponsors pay to be sponsors. So they do. They're getting money that way. But no, there's no paid branch.
Hmm.
I'm not cutting that out either because I like when you're wrong.
And we've never cut out when I'm wrong. So all the times you've ever heard are the times I've been wrong.
You know what else you're wrong with?
What?
PHP 7.1 release
Oh my
candidate 5
god.
was going to be the last release
No,
candidate.
this is the last release candidate.
They even say it this
RC6
time.
final release. Do not use it in production. This is the last one we promise edition. Boy, I had to link to the blog post about it just so it was clear.
What's
This
the
is the
blog post thing?
sixth and final release candidate for 7.1.0. It's done. It's over. It's done. I can't wait. This means that 7.1 will come out officially once my current real pain in the ass project is finished, which means my very next project is going to be migrating to 7.1, which makes me super happy. One of the
Man.
things I love the most is that I can run the bleeding edge stuff where I work, and we will absolutely be doing it here.
Yeah, I was sharing a story with you earlier, and I'll share it with the listeners as well. It's we have a client that we did an upgrade. We only upgrade to 5.6, and it has just been a week, a couple weeks now, of just paranoid tickets being raised by the client. Every time something goes a little quirky on the site, they think it's because of this upgrade, and they could be the most random issues. It's like, oh man, it's just this. And to their defense, there has been a couple of things that we have tracked back as being related to the upgrade. The way PHP 5.6 parses HTML and all this other, all these little quirky things that we've had to work fix actually make the code better. I mean, it's been all positive, but man, upgrading is not always a fun thing.
Yeah, I love it.
Do you want to talk about the next story?
Oh, I'd love to. Well, this brings up a good point. I don't have my weekly bit.
What's your weekly bit?
My Tom's Doom and Gloom segment.
What do you mean?
I don't have a Doom and Gloom segment.
I mean, how is it any different than any other week?
Well, this is all good news.
Oh, is this next thing a good? I see the dark reading. I'm like, this has got to be doom and gloom. Is it not doom and gloom?
No, this isn't Doom and Gloom. This is good.
Well, god damn it, that's
Good.
pretty good.
This
Now,
is good-ish. Good-ish.
all right, before we get into it, I'm gonna put you on the spot because you hurt my feelings week after week. What did you think of last week's show?
Did we have a show last week?
My freaking god! Our editors went out of their way to fulfill your requests, and you can't do them the simple
Oh my
justice.
God, they did?
My God, man. I mean, really.
What?
Yes, they really did. Not only did they fulfill your request, and they must listen to the show because they did it, but they
They did
sent
it
me
without your
multiple.
prompting?
They
What?
sent me multiple copies of the show
What?
with and without the music in case I wasn't happy. I wasn't
What?
particularly I wasn't particularly happy with the music that they put in there, but they made the effort to do it, so I kept it in there.
Oh my God. I apologize to our editors. I will absolutely put aside time to listen to my own show.
I've been fighting all week not to say anything to you because I wanted to see if you listened and caught it, and you never did. And once again, my heart just is a little empty.
Uh, now I feel bad. Hold on, hold on.
What are we doing? Why are we holding? What's
There we go. I
happening?
feel better.
You feel, oh,
Having
okay.
some beer.
All right, so let's talk about your last news thing that's not doom and gloom. We got about 5 minutes.
Oh no,
Let's
I can
wrap it
I
up.
can absolutely take this to doom and gloom territory.
Let's not do that. Let's stay positive. We've had enough doom and gloom this week, with the elections and Laracon going to New York and all that.
You know what the
And
DMCA is?
yeah, digital management, whatever.
Digital Millennium Copyright Act. So it basically
Millennium.
says
Yeah.
that if a company puts some kind of encryption or locking mechanism on something, then it is illegal to try and circumvent that encryption or locking mechanism. So
Okay.
if your coffee maker requires
Back
Keurig
with the
brand
coffee.
coffee,
You really have an issue with the Keurig coffee maker.
yeah, it is a particularly stupid example of DMCA. But it means that you're not allowed to circumvent that in any way. You're not allowed to try and reuse a cup. You're not allowed to try and sell a cup that claims to be acceptable by the coffee machine.
Well,
It's just
I understand the second part. The first part is where I take exception because if you buy the coffee maker, you should be able to do whatever it is you want. It's your coffee maker now, and this is where the whole DMCA thing really starts to irk me. But go
right.
ahead.
Well, and beyond that, it's illegal to provide instructions on how to build your own way of circumventing this technology. So there's been a recent decision by the U.S. Copyright Office, which basically said, yeah, when it comes to cars and medical devices, researchers are allowed to violate these restrictions.
Huh. Very
So,
cool.
yeah, it's good because there's a lot of security researchers out there who, every time they issue some notice of a bug they found, their fingers are crossed because what they did to find a bug is technically break the law.
Mhm.
Um, and and that's a very kill the messenger type law to have. You
Right.
don't want to blame the good guys for finding out what the bad guys are actually doing and making sure that it can't be done. There's been plenty of instances where hackers have been able to compromise pacemakers, Teslas, Ford cars while they're driving down the freeway over Bluetooth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this the era we live in, when you see an ad for a connected car that's got Wi-Fi in the cabin, I don't see a really good thing coming from that. I see really bad things coming from that. And allowing researchers to say, yeah, no, here's an example of how bad that is good in my
Yeah.
book. Now, the EFF has come out and said simply this doesn't go far enough. The EFF has come out and said, now EFF is the Electronic Frontier Foundation. They said DMCA laws are handcuffing people for owning things. It hurts people who buy things the right way, and it restricts what it is that you're actually purchasing. So they're generally against all of this DRM stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm on board with the EFF. I think that DRM is stupid. It's not making anyone any money, and it's probably costing them money, and it's hurting consumers.
Yep. Totally agree.
But for the time being, at least things are getting a little bit better.
Yeah. This is good to know, especially as much as these driverless cars are becoming more and more prominent, as much as technology is moving into the medical field where people are bringing home machines that their lives literally depend on. Making sure that the people protecting to make sure these devices are safe, making sure they're safe from legal action and not having them constantly worried about whether or not they have to defend their actions, I think it's a good step.
Well, and especially given the news from the last few weeks of the Mirai botnet network. I mentioned that there was a Chinese company that had said, here's the patch to fix the issue, and if you ever blame us for this, we'll sue the shit out of you. And that can't be a legally valid position for for anyone. If you're responsible for something, then you have to take the blame. And to say, because you broke the law under the DMCA and found out that we completely screwed something over, then we're going to sue you. I mean, these are people making a living off of trying to help other people, and we have to protect them. Yes, they are people who are making a living. People like Brian Krebs, he is a white hat hacker. He is somebody who makes a living off of this work, and it's because it's work that he enjoys and it's work that he can profit off of. But it's also under this dark cloud of constantly being threatened by people for the results he gets. And this does make really valuable progress towards a freer and safer future.
All right, cool. Freer,
I told you I could
safer
make it doom and
future.
gloom.
I don't know how free and safe our future is going to be, with everything that's happened this past week. Because New York City is not a very safe place to have a conference. I'm just putting that out there. I'm just going to let everybody know how I feel. I'm very opposed to New York City and everything they've produced lately.
It's the best city. It has the greatest words.
All right. I think we're going to have to call this a day because we're about an hour into it, and with edits and stuff.
We made it all the way through. We said nothing technically politically controversial.
Yeah, this is true.
I'm really proud of us for that. I don't think we're giving ourselves enough credit for that.
This has been episode 36 of PHP Ugly. I'm Eric Van Johnson.
I'm Tom Rideout.
Keep it ugly.
We miss you, John.
We'll need to keep that on there just to see if he actually listens to the show as well.
Yeah, I won't know if we do or not.
So, dude, you need to listen to the last show. Like I said,
I got it. I'll listen to it with my wife.
I wasn't a big fan of the music they used. I'm like, we asked for some doom and gloom music, and the music was more of like a romantic lovers parting ways music, but they put something in there, so
it's my segment. I'll cry if I want to. I liked our first segment where I just interviewed you.
Today?
Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up talking too much. I'm thinking about cutting it.
No.
I don't know.
No.
No? No,
it was fine.
What
You
happened
stopped
to the
recording?
half-hour show? Oh, I should do that. Just stop streaming at
They'll
least.
turn it into. They'll cut it down. They'll make it a trim half hour.
But that was the whole idea. This is supposed to be